Migrants traveling in the much-publicized caravan from Central America began arriving at the U.S. border this month, largely outside California. We'll hear more about the federal government's response from a reporter in Tijuana. But first, just across the Arizona border in Nogales, Sonora, charities that support immigrants and deportees are also helping more asylum seekers. We visited a shelter run by the Kino Border Initiative to find out more about the influx. So Joanna, Arizona Public Media has been here before. Thank you for having us back. One thing that's new this time around, though, are the families of small children we see.
Yeah, unfortunately, so there's always been people who are fleeing from Central America and southern Mexico have come to the border to seek asylum in the United States. But what's unique, unfortunately, this year is that ever since May, Customs and Border Protection, which is in charge of the ports of entry who are supposed to be processing asylum seekers as they arrive, they've been telling people that they have to wait in Mexico for their turn to seek asylum in the United States. So this began in mid-May, extended over the course of the summer. Eventually they started to process people a little faster in July, but then once again we see long lines of people who have to wait in Mexico now for the opportunity to seek safety, and the wait can be 2 weeks. It was up to a month a couple of months ago, and so many of these families and young children are now in an unstable situation. They're staying in shelter on the other side of town and coming and eating here in the comedor.
The Kino Border Initiative is providing what sort of support to these families? Strictly meals a few times a day?
So the primary support that we're able to provide, we have a small shelter space, but it's really a lot of other NGOs who are providing other shelter spaces. We're providing meals both here as well as to the first people in line, so the people whose turn is next are staying at the port of entry. So we send food to the port of entry so that they can have a meal while they wait there. And then we're also collaborating with the Florence Immigrant and Refugee Rights Project to provide legal assistance. Because many of the families, all that they know is that they need to get out of the situation that they're in. They don't have a sense of what's the asylum process in the United States. So we try to do legal orientations while people are still in Mexico so they can understand their rights, they can understand the process and make an informed decision about whether that's a good choice for them.
What are these families telling you about what they're hearing when they go to request asylum and that time, that legal limbo that they're in while they wait?
So they get almost no information when they, either from when they leave Guatemala or when they arrive to the border. So they've heard in Guatemala that there might be some opportunity for them to stay in the United States. When they get to the border and say, I'm afraid or I'm seeking asylum, the Customs and Border Protection officer just says, well, wait in this line, and doesn't orient them at all to the process. So that's where I think we come in uniquely, to provide more of an overview of the process, what the requirements for asylum are, what does it look like to go to court. It's difficult when people are waiting in Mexico. They have a sense of urgency. They just need to get into a more safe and stable place. It's difficult for them to wrap their minds around how long and difficult the asylum process is in the United States and what it'll look like to be in courts. So we're trying a lot of different approaches to help better inform people on that front.
And you're seeing the whole gamut of population, moms, dads, kids, and men who have just been deported who are here seeking your services as well.
The fact that we have so many asylum seekers stranded here in Nogales doesn't preclude all of the other dimensions of our work, which the Kino Border Initiative historically has primarily served people who are deported. We're the main point of deportation in Arizona, and we're one of the primary ports throughout all of the United States. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we released a report that's called Communities in Crisis, about the devastating impacts of these detentions of people who are living in the United States. 78% of them have kids. They've lived an average of 20 years in the US. So for them, their arrival in Mexico is very different than somebody who's just crossed the border because they don't have a home necessarily to go back to.
Much of the attention that's been given to this caravan is mixed, that some of these people are here for legitimate purposes, others are not. How do you, as a Kino Border Initiative, go about balancing the humanitarian aid versus what's being played out in the press?
I don't know that our job is to balance. Our job is to welcome human beings in their dignity, see each mom and say, that could be me. See a child and say, that could have been me. So identify strongly with the people that we receive on a day-to-day basis and try to figure out how can we best respond to their needs as well as how can we encourage people in the United States to see people for their dignity and see them as brothers and sisters. We're a Catholic organization and that's our understanding as it were receiving our brothers and sisters. So we say that lightly, but it's a radical statement. The United States has been involved in creating some of the challenges that have led to migration through our involvement, for example, in the Salvadoran Civil War. The past, it does matter. The fact that the United States is involved in Central America, the fact that the United States is the primary demand for the drugs that are being trafficked through Mexico, all of those factors matter because we've been involved in creating the problems.
We've heard crisis. At what point will you say, we've hit our point and we don't know if we can sustain this very much longer?
I think that's a difficult question for us to answer, and one that we're not necessarily concerned about, to be frank. What we're concerned about is what do we have the potential to do. And the same thing applies in our work in advocacy. We can't respond to every policy. We can't perfectly advocate, but we know what we're capable of, and we're willing to put in all of the time and resources that we can on that topic. So I don't think we'll ever reach a point where we can't do it anymore. It's just a matter of what areas are we able to focus on, and providing food, providing medical attention. Those are the bases that we'll continue to sustain.